Yellowstone. 1944 is not the prequel we thought it would be. It is darker, more ruthless, and filled with twists that even the most die-hard fans never saw coming. Taylor Sheridan has finally confirmed the continuation of the Yellowstone saga, and this time it is John Dutton II's fate that takes center stage. But what has stunned fans most is not just the story of Spencer's return or the haunting whispers of Alexandra's ghost, but the shocking revelation that Elizabeth's comeback could tear the Dutton family apart from the inside. This is not just another chapter, it is the chapter that decides everything about the Dutton legacy. The Yellowstone universe has always been about power, pain, and survival, but 1944 raises the stakes to levels we have never seen before. The timeline alone makes this prequel unlike anything Sheridan has given us. We are thrust 21 years forward from the heartbreak of 1923 right into the chaos of World War II. That means Spencer's son, John Dutton II, is no longer a child. He is a young man standing at the crossroads of history, torn between loyalty to his bloodline and the brutal reality of a world at war. And here's the catch. John Dutton II is not just any Dutton. He is the direct father of the man we all know as Kevin Costner's John Dutton. That makes his story not just important, but absolutely essential to understanding everything that comes later in Yellowstone. But what makes this new chapter so dangerous is the shadow that follows John Dutton II from the very beginning. His mother's tragic death, Alexandra's final breath after giving birth in 1923, left scars that never healed, and those scars now define her son. A boy who grows up without a mother learns early what it means to lose, what it means to carry pain, and what it means to fight the world alone. Sheridan is not just writing a young Dutton here, he is shaping a character who has been built from grief. A Dutton who might be colder, sharper, and more dangerous than anyone we've ever seen. And the real twist? Alexandra's story may not even be finished. In a shocking turn, Julia Schleipfer, the actress who played Alexandra, has said she is open to returning even though her character died. And fans have gone absolutely wild over this. Imagine Alexandra haunting the story of her son, not in flesh and blood, but as a ghost, appearing in visions, tormenting Spencer with guilt, or guiding John Dutton II with her memory. It might sound crazy, but Yellowstone has always thrived on emotional destruction, and bringing back Alexandra in some form would be the ultimate Sheridan move. It would mean that John Dutton II does not just inherit her absence, he might inherit her presence too, as a ghostly reminder of the love and the loss that shaped him. Now add Elizabeth into the mix, and you have the kind of drama that could break the Dutton family in half. The last time we saw her, Elizabeth was carrying Jack's child, pregnant with another heir to the Dutton ranch. But by the time 1944 begins, rumors suggest Elizabeth returns to the ranch not just with her son, but with a claim on the land, on the name, and on the future. What fans cannot stop talking about is how this sets up an impossible conflict. If Elizabeth's son grows up on the ranch, then John Dutton II and Elizabeth's child will both be heirs. 2 young men, 2 legacies, 1 ranch. Rivalry is inevitable, and Sheridan knows it. Yellowstone has never been afraid of turning family against family, and in 1944, the most explosive rivalry could be between cousins raised under the same roof. And where does Spencer fit into all this? That is the burning question. Brandon Sklenar has already teased that he is ready to return, and the show simply cannot work without him. But if Spencer is back, that means one thing. He is an older man now, carrying the weight of a broken heart and raising a son in the middle of global war. And this is where the story turns truly shocking, because Sheridan has already hinted that Spencer finds new love later in life with a widowed woman. Fans have long speculated who that widow could be, and the answer that keeps coming up is the one that will blow this entire saga wide open. Could it really be Elizabeth? Could Spencer, Alexandra's widower, end up with Elizabeth, the widow of his own family's bloodline? It sounds impossible. It sounds insane. But in Yellowstone, the line between impossible and inevitable has always been razor thin. If this twist is true, it would not just be another romance. It would be the kind of scandal that defines generations. Elizabeth stepping back into Spencer's life could create an entirely new branch of the Dutton legacy, one marked by betrayal, rivalry, and forbidden ties. Imagine John Dutton II watching as his father builds a new life with a woman who is already tied to the family. That kind of wound does not heal, and Sheridan knows it. The Dutton Ranch has always been a battlefield, but this time the battle might begin at the family table itself. And remember, all of this unfolds against the backdrop of the most devastating war the world has ever known. World War II will not just touch the Duttons, it will consume them. John Dutton II is at the perfect age to be drafted, and if that happens, the entire ranch could be thrown into chaos. Who protects the land when the heir is across the ocean fighting for his life? Who makes the decisions when the young Dutton faces the horrors of war? And most of all, what kind of man comes back from that battlefield? If he comes back at all? The answers are not clear, and that is exactly what makes 1944 so thrilling. Sheridan has laid out the pieces of a story that is bigger, darker, and more brutal than anything we have seen before. A broken son, a returning widow, a haunting ghost, and a war that tears the world apart. It is the perfect storm for the most explosive Yellowstone chapter yet. But if Spencer really does take Elizabeth into his life, if Alexandra's ghost really does return to haunt them all, what kind of Dutton legacy will survive? Or will 1944 finally be the moment the family begins to destroy itself from within? If you thought Yellowstone 1883 was brutal and 1923 was devastating, 1944 is shaping up to be the most merciless chapter of all. The reason? This time the Dutton family is not just battling rivals on their own soil, they are being dragged into a global war that could rip their very foundation apart. Think about it. John Dutton II, the only son of Spencer and Alexandra, is at the prime age to be drafted. That means Sheridan is setting up a story where the heir to the Yellowstone Ranch might have to leave Montana behind, march onto the front lines of Europe, and face horrors that no Dutton has ever endured before. And the chilling part? The war does not just take lives, it changes men. If John Dutton II goes to war, he will never return the same. And that makes the future of the Yellowstone Ranch more uncertain than ever. But here's where Sheridan does what only Sheridan can do. He makes sure the war abroad and the war at home collide. While John Dutton II may be overseas, the ranch back in Montana cannot simply stand still. Elizabeth's return means the land itself becomes contested, and Spencer, an older and more battle-worn man, has to hold everything together. But remember this, Spencer himself is haunted. Haunted by Alexandra's death, haunted by choices he never wanted to make, haunted by the life he built out of tragedy. If he allows Elizabeth back into his life, not just as a widow of the family, but as his own partner, the ranch is set to explode with tension. Imagine the whispers, the rumors, the betrayal that would ripple through the Dutton bloodline. Fans are already calling this the forbidden chapter of Yellowstone, and it is not hard to see why. And here's where Alexandra's ghost becomes more than just a theory. It becomes the emotional knife that Sheridan twists into every scene. Julia Schlafer herself has teased that she would love to return as a ghost, and Sheridan is not the type to waste an opportunity for heartbreak. Picture Spencer moving on with Elizabeth, trying to create a new sense of family, only for Alexandra's presence to linger, haunting him, haunting John Dutton II, and haunting the ranch itself. This is not just about love, it is about guilt, about betrayal, about ghosts that refuse to die even when the person is long gone. And that kind of storytelling is exactly what makes Sheridan so devastatingly brilliant. But let's not forget Elizabeth's son. If he returns to the ranch alongside his mother, the seeds of rivalry are sown from day one. John Dutton II and Elizabeth's son are both heirs, both blood, both raised to believe they deserve the Yellowstone name. And when you put two ambitious Dutton heirs under one roof, war is inevitable. Family dinners turn into battlegrounds. Training the cattle turns into proving dominance, and inheritance becomes a weapon sharper than any blade. If Sheridan decides to lean into this rivalry, we are not just looking at sibling-like tension, we are looking at the origin of the kind of ruthless family fights that shape every generation of the Duttons. And all of this unfolds while the world outside the ranch burns. America in 1944 is at its breaking point. Resources are drained for the war effort. Families are torn apart as fathers, sons, and brothers march off to battle. Even in Montana, the war touches everything. Fewer hands to work the ranch, less food to go around, more pressure to contribute to the cause. For the first time, Yellowstone itself is forced to play a role in a global struggle. And this is what makes 1944 unique. The ranch is not just fighting enemies we can see, it is fighting forces far bigger than itself. But here's the twist that fans can't stop speculating about. What happens if John Dutton II never makes it back? Sheridan is famous for killing off characters we thought untouchable. Alexandra's death in 1923 proved that nobody is safe. And if he decides to mirror that tragedy again, 1944 could shatter the family in ways we cannot even imagine. Because if John Dutton II falls on the battlefield, what happens to the ranch? What happens to Spencer? And what happens to the legacy that Kevin Costner's John Dutton eventually inherits? The heartbreaking possibility is that 1944 does not just tell the story of survival, it tells the story of loss so devastating that the Dutton Ranch itself almost collapses. And if Sheridan really wants to shock us, he might use John Dutton II's fate to set up the kind of generational trauma that echoes through every Yellowstone series we've ever seen. Could it be that John Dutton II's ghost haunts his son just as Alexandra might haunt Spencer? Could Sheridan really turn this prequel into a saga of ghosts, betrayals, and rivalries that define the Duttons for decades to come? Because here's the truth. Sheridan never writes anything by accident. That single line in 1923 about Spencer being with a widow later in life, it was not a throwaway. It was a clue. And if that clue really leads to Elizabeth, then 1944 is about to unleash the most scandalous, forbidden love story in the entire Yellowstone timeline. But if Elizabeth becomes Spencer's partner, if her son and John Dutton II both claim inheritance, and if the war overseas takes more than it gives, how long before the Yellowstone Ranch itself becomes the biggest casualty of them all? Every time we think we understand the Duttons, Sheridan proves us wrong. And Yellowstone 1944 looks set to be the most shocking proof of all. Because this is not just a family saga anymore, it's a collision between destiny, betrayal, and history itself. What fans are beginning to realize is that John Dutton II may not simply be a character we watch grow into power, he may be a character whose very survival is uncertain. And that is what makes 1944 so terrifying. Sheridan has a pattern. He builds up the characters we love most, makes us root for their future, then rips it away in a way that feels cruel but unforgettable. Alexandra's death in 1923 was proof. So what does that mean for her son in 1944? Could Sheridan be preparing to break us all over again by sending John Dutton II into war and never letting him come back? If that happens, the Yellowstone Ranch faces a future none of us imagined. Because who takes the reins if the rightful heir falls? Spencer is too old to rebuild a dynasty alone. Alexandra is gone. Elizabeth's son would still be young and inexperienced. The family would be left fractured, vulnerable, and wide open to collapse. And this is where Sheridan thrives, pushing the Duttons to the brink of destruction just to show us how much it costs to hold on to power. Imagine the chaos if John Dutton II is killed in action, leaving the ranch without its true heir, while Elizabeth's son steps forward to claim the throne. That would not just divide the family, it would redefine it forever. But here's where things get even more twisted. The rumors swirling around Hollywood whisper that Sheridan's real endgame in 1944 is to finally answer one of the biggest mysteries in the Yellowstone universe. How exactly did Kevin Costner's John Dutton inherit the ranch? Fans have debated endlessly about who his father really was, about what traumas shaped him into the hard, ruthless man we know. And 1944 could deliver those answers in the most brutal way possible. If John Dutton II dies young, perhaps leaving behind a child of his own, that child would be the father to Costner's John Dutton. Which means Kevin Costner's John is not simply shaped by land and blood, but by the unbearable weight of being raised in the shadow of a father who never made it home from war. That kind of revelation would send shockwaves through the entire saga. Meanwhile, Spencer's role in all of this cannot be ignored. As the elder Dutton, he is the glue holding the pieces together. But what kind of glue can hold when it is cracked itself? Remember, Spencer's life has been defined by violence, grief, and loss. The African hunts, the heartbreak of Alexandra, the years of exile, all of it weighs on him. Now he is asked to be a father, a leader, and perhaps even a lover once more if the rumors about Elizabeth prove true. But how can a man with so many scars rebuild something stable? And if he really does marry Elizabeth, how do the Dutton children react when the lines between cousin, heir, and half-brother blur into one tangled knot of rivalry? The most frightening part of this theory is that it might explain the coldness of Kevin Costner's John Dutton. Because if his father, John Dutton II, was lost to war or returned a broken man, and if his grandfather Spencer made choices that put loyalty and inheritance into question, then Costner's John did not inherit strength. He inherited wounds. Sheridan could be showing us that the Dutton Empire we see in Yellowstone is not built on triumph. It is built on trauma passed down like a curse. And that makes 1944 not just another prequel, but the missing key to the entire saga. And then comes the ghost of Alexandra. If Sheridan truly dares to bring her back in spirit, the emotional devastation would be beyond anything we've seen in the Yellowstone universe. Imagine John Dutton II haunted by a mother he never knew, Spencer haunted by the love he lost, and Elizabeth haunted by the shadow of the woman she could never replace. It is not just a ghost story, it is Sheridan reminding us that the Duttons can never escape their past. Every decision they make, every romance they chase, every fight they take on is tied to those who came before. And Alexandra's ghost would be the perfect symbol of that. But the war, the rivalries, the forbidden romances, these are only the start. Sheridan is famous for keeping his biggest twists hidden until the last possible moment. And fans are already asking, if Spencer really does marry Elizabeth, if John Dutton II really does go to war, if Alexandra really does return as a ghost, what could Sheridan possibly have planned for the finale of 1944? What is the ultimate twist that will leave us all stunned? Could it be that the Yellowstone Ranch itself is lost, broken, or handed over to someone outside the bloodline? Could Sheridan really dare to destroy the very land that has defined this universe from the beginning? Everything in 1944 points to one terrifying truth. The Dutton legacy is not a story of strength passed down. It is a story of scars, betrayals, and sacrifices that never end. Sheridan has built this universe on one idea. The land survives, but the people who protect it are broken again and again. And 1944 may finally be the series that shows us how deep those wounds run. Because this is not just about Spencer's heartbreak or Alexandra's ghost. It is not just about Elizabeth's shocking return or John Dutton II's uncertain fate. It is about whether the Yellowstone Ranch itself can even survive a world that is ripping apart at the seams. World War II is not just a backdrop, it is the storm that will sweep through every character we care about. John Dutton II faces the possibility of being drafted, thrown into the battlefield, and returning either broken or not at all. If he dies, the Dutton line passes through chaos. If he survives, he carries demons that will shape every decision he makes as the next heir. And fans are already whispering that this is the moment Sheridan uses to explain why Kevin Costner's John Dutton is such a hard, cold, unforgiving man. Because he was raised by pain, by loss, and by a father who could never escape the war inside his own head. That is not just tragedy, that is destiny. But even as the war rages overseas, the war at home might be worse. Elizabeth's reappearance sets off a chain reaction that can only end in blood. Her son claiming inheritance against John Dutton II creates a rivalry that could destroy the family from within. And if the shocking rumors are true, if Spencer himself takes Elizabeth as his partner, the ranch becomes a place where betrayal is not just possible, it is inevitable. Imagine the scandal, the whispers, the hatred that brews when Spencer's son and Elizabeth's son fight not just for land, but for identity, for legitimacy, for the right to call themselves a true Dutton. Sheridan thrives on tearing families apart, and in 1944, he might have created the most explosive family war of all. And then there is Alexandra. Her death broke us all, but her return, even as a ghost, would break us again. Sheridan has never feared the supernatural if it serves the emotional truth of the story. Alexandra appearing to Spencer in visions, to John Dutton II in dreams, or even as a voice guiding them through grief, would change the entire tone of 1944. It would remind us that the past never dies, and the Duttons will never be free of the ones they have lost. Her ghost is not just a haunting, it is the symbol of everything the Duttons can never escape. And if Sheridan dares to bring her back, fans will not just be stunned, they will be devastated in the way only Yellowstone can devastate. But here is the real question. What is Sheridan building toward? Every prequel has revealed the survival of the ranch, but 1944 might be the first time he asks whether the ranch should survive at all. If John Dutton II falls, if the family is fractured, if war takes more than it gives, does Yellowstone itself collapse? Could Sheridan really have the courage to show us a moment in history when the Duttons almost lost it all? When the ranch nearly slipped away, and when survival was not guaranteed? That would not just shock fans, it would redefine everything we know about the saga. And here lies the most chilling possibility of all. What if 1944 ends not with triumph, not with survival, but with a revelation so devastating it changes the way we see Yellowstone forever? What if Sheridan reveals that the ranch we know today was not inherited cleanly, but stolen, betrayed, and drenched in the blood of its own heirs? What if Kevin Costner's John Dutton does not inherit a legacy of honor, but a legacy of betrayal buried so deep the family never speaks of it again? That would not just be a twist, it would be the ultimate Sheridan betrayal. Because 1944 is not about heroes, it is about scars. It is about the ghosts that never leave, the wars that never end, and the family ties that strangle as much as they bind. And when the final credits roll, fans will not be asking whether the Duttons survived 1944. They will be asking whether surviving was even worth it. So the only question left is this. When the guns fall silent, when the war ends, and when the Duttons stand on the ashes of what they have lost, who will be left standing to call themselves a true Dutton? Or will Sheridan reveal that the Yellowstone legacy we thought we knew was a lie all along?